Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and I'm here with my beautiful wife, always, Kimberly McNabb. Well, we have completed all but two of the 2024 major presidential candidates, and here we have President Joe Biden. Let's go ahead and watch his re-election video.
Freedom, personal freedom, is fundamental to who we are as Americans.
There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred.
That's been the work of my first term, to fight for our democracy.
This shouldn't be a red or blue issue.
To protect our rights, to make sure that everyone in this country is treated equally and that everyone is given a fair shot at making it. But you know, around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms. Cutting Social Security.
Not true.
That you paid for your entire life, while cutting taxes for the very wealthy. Dictating what health care decisions women can make. Banning books. And telling people who they can love. All while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote. When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent.
You know, we're going to stop it here just because we don't want to get a copyright strike because we're not familiar with the music that's being used in President Biden's re-election video. But
plus, there's some points to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I love how he starts off with the January 6th stuff. Like, hey, we don't want to relive that day, I think is the main point he's trying to get across. But he emphasizes freedom.
Right.
Did you feel not free? I mean, other than the COVID restrictions, do you feel less free?
Well, yeah, I mean, I did. And, you know, one of the big things is says more choices, not less choices. And here we have, you know, an opportunity where parents have really risen up in the past 2 years to talk about education and parental rights. And, you know, that seems to have gone by the wayside. As far as freedoms go, you know, economic freedom, that's declined.
I don't feel economically free at all.
Right.
At all. You know, for instance, one of my favorite drinks, it's my white trash energy drink, Diet Mountain Dew. You could get the 6-pack at Walmart just 2 years ago at standard price, $2.48. Now it's $4.98.
Yeah. I mean, that's called inflation, folks.
Yeah, so that's just a small sample size of how expensive groceries are. And so it impacts everything. And so we don't go on vacation anymore. We don't buy clothes anymore, except for the kids, of course. So, yeah, freedom. Yeah, when there are parents in certain places in the country where they're not supposed to know what's going on with their kids' school, they're not free to know those things.
Yeah, and I think it was a little disingenuous as well for the Social Security cuts. During his State of the Union address, President Biden said that Republicans were cutting Social Security benefits, and there was a lot of boos. And then he stopped his speech and he goes, "Can I get a commitment from the Republicans that you're not cutting Social Security?" And he got a whole standing ovation. So it's disingenuous to say that Republicans want to cut Social Security. Now, what they are saying is that there are problems for Social Security and things have to change in order to make sure that people receive the benefits that they paid for. But that has been a Democrat problem and a Republican problem for decades and decades.
Well, plus, if they don't do something, everyone's going to lose their Social Security.
Exactly.
I am not counting on it at all by the time I get old enough.
Right. And as far as voting rights, he's saying, making it
Who
harder.
has lost their voting rights?
No one has lost their voting rights. No one has lost their voting rights. Election integrity is important, and voter ID laws. I mean, you have to show your ID to get on an airplane. You have to show your ID to buy a box of Sudafedrin.
I bought kids cough syrup the other day.
Right.
Had to show my ID.
Right. All right, let's keep going so that we can look at this. We'll stop it at probably about 2 more times, just because of copyright limitations.
That's why I'm running for re-election. Because I know America. I know we're good and decent people. I know we're still a country that believes in honesty and respect and treating each other with dignity. That we're a nation where we give hate no safe harbor. We believe that everyone is equal, that everyone should be given a fair shot to succeed in this country.
Thank you for choosing us.
Every generation of Americans has faced a moment when they have to defend democracy. Stand up for our personal freedom. Stand up for the right to vote and our civil rights. And this is our moment.
All right, so right there we saw Joe Biden at his maximum sprint and the maximum distance that he can run, and they had to film that. They're like, "Look, we can only have one take of this." So we wanted to stop it there so you could see what Biden's burst of speed is, and then he had to take a nap.
Well, maybe that is why the little powder was found in the White House. Maybe that was the amphetamine or whatever they were going to give him for that shot.
Maybe.
But
so you get that burst.
Yeah, I've heard a joke on Ruthless podcast. They refer to Joe Biden at his normal pace as Roomba. He's just constantly wondering,
right.
like, I'm not sure where to go. I'm not sure where to go. But I wanted to comment on, before we stopped the last time, love who we want to love. I'm sorry, gay marriage is legal.
Yeah.
Has been legal since Obama. So, again, disingenuous right there.
Love whoever you want to love. That's fine.
Yeah, we don't
As
care.
long as it doesn't harm somebody. You can't violate
two consenting
stalking
adults
orders
don't care.
and things like that. But love whoever you want to love.
But he also said, I know America. I'm like, dude, you've been in politics since you were 29 years old. You haven't worked a real job since at least 29 years old.
Right.
You're out of touch. You haven't
Right.
had real problems since then. You've only encountered people who also were senators or maybe GOP people, but you've been in a bubble for 50 years. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm calling
and
BS.
have had a staff.
I'm calling complete
and
BS.
had a complete staff to kind of do everything for you for.
Yeah, I mean, when was the last time you had to clean your own toilet? Never.
Right. Well, we're all equal. Yes, we are. We're all equal.
But we're not the same.
But we're not the same, and everybody has different wants and needs, and depending
priorities
upon where you are in life, are you young? Are you in the middle of your career? Or at the end of your career? So everybody has different things. So there's the old adage. That if you're under the age of 30 and you're not a Democrat, you don't have a heart. If you're over the age of 30 and you're not a Republican, you don't have a brain. All right. So, I mean, this is one of those things where he's just, throwing some dog whistles out there. He's pulling on heartstrings, but it doesn't put food in people's plates.
Exactly.
I mean, that's really what it is. So we'll keep going.
We, the people, will not decide.
So if you're with me, go to joebiden.com and sign up. Let's finish this job. I know we can. Because this is the United States of America. There's nothing, simply nothing we cannot do if we do it together.
Okay, so
I will say he has beautiful handwriting.
Yeah, is that his handwriting?
Well, I'm assuming. I don't know. I mean, it may look like an epileptic Parkinson. I don't
Yeah,
know. The
I don't know.
handwriting used was beautiful penmanship, and the music was very, like, oh yeah, I'm, does get you fired up.
I completely agree with you. The video was excellently done. Chris Christie, get a video. You're way up behind in the polls, but get a video.
I mean, whoever their marketer they use, the video editor, like if that same person like did everyone's video, we would be very torn on who to use.
Yeah, exactly. It is a well done video. It's got great camera angles. It's got great music. It cuts correctly. It's very well edited. And
feel good imagery and whatnot.
And it's present. So those political candidates that do not have just an intro video that is easily accessible immediately upon going to your website, I think it's a political fail. There's just a few candidates that didn't happen with, but it needs to be present. But one of the things that I disagree with, we had a video that actually two videos. Jill Stein's video that we did, we'll put a link here, and Vivek Ramaswamy's video, and we'll put a link there to their videos. They were not able to be monetized because there was music that was in them. Now, these are my thoughts on it. This is obviously getting off the Joe Biden, but here's my thoughts on it. If it's a political video used for a public election that is going on the national level, I don't think you should be able to play the videos without any copyright issues whatsoever, because this is an elected office.
Public knowledge.
It's public knowledge, but we did stop this 3 times because we wanted to make sure that we were able to get this video to you. The Stein and the Ramaswamy videos had some issues, but we played the campaign videos, the official campaign video, in its entirety. So anyway, we just wanted to do that administrative note. But Joe Biden
says finish the job.
Finish the job.
Do we want to continue the last 3 years? That trajectory in all aspects of life? I'm sorry, that's a scary thought for me.
I will be very surprised. I will be very, very surprised if when we get to the general election and we have Joe Biden as the presumptive nominee, and we have a Republican candidate as the nominee. We don't know who that's going to be. The polls are changing all the time. Currently, the front runner is Donald Trump. But I would be shocked if the Republican candidate did not echo the words of Ronald Reagan when he was debating Jimmy Carter and talked to the camera and said, you need to ask yourself, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? All right.
Yeah. So think 2019. How well off were you?
Yeah. Well, 2020 is what I would say. Or 2000.
Well, I'm backing out the pandemic.
Right. Okay. But still, if you ask that question, undoubtedly there is no defense that the Democrat nominee, at this point it's probably going to be Joe Biden, is going to be able to make that you are better off than you were 4 years ago.
Yep.
And so I challenge any Republican candidate to recycle that line. But let's talk about his economic record. I mean,
yep.
Here
Let's
we are
start
talking
off with economic record,
because that's what we're talking about. Are you better off?
That affects everyone.
It sure does.
Some people like to go to the abortion issue, or they like to go to trans issues. Those don't affect absolutely everyone, but everyone has to buy groceries.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that affects all of us. So when we hear economic inflation numbers, people are like, oh, inflation's going down, it's going down. That's just the rate at which things are climbing. And you have to think the numbers that they're trying to gaslight us with do not include food. That's to me, that's the most important one. And so food inflation, 2017, it was 0.9%. 0.9%. 2018, 1.4%. Versus 2021, 3.9%. 2022, 9.9%, which feeds back into my white trash energy drink, Diet Mountain Dew at Walmart. So, and then, overall inflation numbers, 21, it was 4.7. 2022, 8%. They usually shoot for an overall inflation number of just 2%.
Well,
so,
I mean, to your point, Kimberly,
and that's at rate per year, going up over the previous year.
Right. And to your point, Kimberly, the Biden administration, when they're touting that administration is coming down,
They don't mean the prices are going down.
they don't mean the prices are coming down. The rate of inflation is coming down. So the prices continue to rise. It's the rate of inflation is going down.
So instead of going up like this, it's going up like
it's still going up though. It's still going up. And
Yes.
so I think the famous Mark Twain quote about statistics is there's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. All right. So you can get statistics to say anything you want. And so when you disingenuously say,
you back out food. I mean,
Yeah,
come on. If it's saying 8%, what's it really?
I mean, so you have, the person that has to pay more when they're buying a Ferrari, that's included in the numbers, but a single mom with 3 kids going out and buying staples, bread, milk, cheese, butter and peanut butter and things like that, that's still going up, and it hasn't gone down. And so, who's affected more? I'd say it's the single mom with the 3 kids.
Yep, it's a higher percentage of her income. And also another way of putting the inflation numbers is like, okay, last year I gained 50 pounds, but this year I only gained 10. You still gain weight.
Right. You gained less weight.
Yes, but you're still heavier than you want to be.
Right. Yeah.
And then another statistic that they like to tout is, under Joe Biden, they've created 13.25 million jobs. But we need to remember during the lockdowns under COVID, 22 million, 9 million more jobs were lost. So really, you could just say we're recovering
That's exactly right.
some of the jobs, but we're still negative 9 million jobs.
Yeah, jobs are not being created, they're being replaced. It's getting back to the status quo. So it's
Absolutely.
disingenuous. Instead of saying created, they should say we've rehired this amount of people.
And most of those jobs were lost in like a year and a half, and
Right.
we've had 3 years to replace those jobs, and we're still 9 million short.
Yeah, and really, it's also not. I mean, we have all these new Gen Z and millennial things, the quiet quitting and the job surfing and things like that, where companies just went crazy with their salaries and their compensation and things like that in order to lure workers back because there was this hyper competitive hiring going on, but now that's all cooled. That's all cooled because the economy has caught up with that, and people are not purchasing as much, and so all of that stuff is, well, I'm only gonna work the hours that I was originally, nothing extra. I'm not gonna do anything like that. Working's hard, but
they need to realize those inflation numbers also affect businesses. So
Right.
their cost for printer ink is going up. Gas and company cars is going out. So if you're not proving yourself to be valuable, you might want to reconsider the coffee tagging or whatever it's called.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But so that just goes to this job. It's a little disingenuous, and it's easy to spin. Right. Mm-hmm. It's easy for the press secretary to get up there and spend all of these numbers, but you have to realize that you haven't gotten back to zero yet, and then created the jobs. So that's just reality. There is no spin on that. Now, what about the middle class incomes, Kimberly?
In 2022, middle class median income fell 2.2%, meaning $2,000 poorer than January 2021.
Which is huge.
But there was actually a $6,000 increase in median house income under Trump per the Census Bureau.
Right, and that's a nonpartisan. So when we say these numbers, we're not putting a spin. We're just using data from the Census Bureau, which is an independent organization. It's nonpartisan. Mm-hmm. So again, you'll hear me say this a number of times during this video. Are you better off now than where you were 4 years ago?
Yeah. So you can use the feel good lines, but your wallet doesn't care. Who says the feel-good lines or what those lines are. And one of the feel-good lines that I hear used is, "Oh, income inequality has decreased since January 2021." Well, guess what? There are two ways to work that. You can either keep the rich where they are and make the poorer richer, or you can keep the poor poor and make the rich poorer. And that is what is actually occurring. So yes, they are coming more into the middle, but the poor are still poor.
Yeah, ideally,
You want to raise all boats.
You want to raise all boats. You want to make the poor people richer. You want to make the middle class richer, and you want to make the rich richer. That's really what you want to do.
The thing people fail to think about is rich people hire people. They hire them, and I don't mean just to come clean their house or to cater their, little Christmas party or whatever. I mean, they increase employees at their businesses, and they buy more stuff, and that's more income for the people that are selling the Ferraris on commission or whatever it is.
Or they start new businesses.
Yeah, or they decide to finally take a leap into a new business and hire more people. So it affects everybody.
Right. I agree. So let's talk about his foreign record. So honestly, he looks weak to foreign leaders. He's got a history of choosing the weakest path.
Yeah, and that's all throughout his senator career as a senator. I mean, come on. One of his first acts was to withdraw from Afghanistan and left billions of dollars of equipment there. Well, it's not just rotting in the middle of a desert. I mean, the Taliban is going to scoop that up.
Right.
Either use it, or if it's not usable, they're going to re-engineer it. And guess what? Probably 20 years from now, we'll be fighting our old equipment.
Yeah, I mean, that's just absolutely crazy. When I was in Afghanistan, we had a number of forward operating bases, FOBs, that are everywhere. And you'd have anywhere from a platoon to a company-sized element, sometimes a battalion-sized element at these forward operating bases, and they'd be scattered around the provinces. And HESCO barriers would be built, and they'd have defensive structures and barracks and things like that. Well, when units no longer decided to occupy those FOBs, those forward operating bases, and consolidated or moved or whatever, the Taliban would move in. To those FOBs and have U.S. built defensive fortifications just left for them. And so when we have to go back and retake that terrain, we'd have to fight against our own defenses. Now, we have air power and helicopters and stuff like that, so we're able to do it. But still, it was very ironic that we built up these areas and then the Taliban got to utilize it. And it's the same thing, to your point, Kimberly, with the military equipment. Whether or not it was demilitarized, maybe or not, but a lot of it is in good working order. A lot of it, because the Afghan army had it, and they were utilizing it. And so if they just left it, we didn't destroy the Afghan National Army's equipment, just they capitulated. And, it's just the staggering amount of money that Joe Biden left there is just
How would
weakness.
you have done the withdrawal, or would you have done it at all? Because I know, we still have bases in, Germany and Japan, these places that we fought in World War II. We have bases there.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll put a video that we did the Afghan withdrawal two years later. But what I would have done is a phased withdrawal. And we're definitely, on the topic of Biden, but I would have done a phased withdrawal, and I'll just go over this quickly. There were 5 regional commands: Regional Command North, South, East, West, and Central. Central is where Kabul was, the capital. And what I would have done is I would have withdrawn out of one of the regional commands, and I would have seen what happened.
Yeah.
Right. So it's called a phased withdrawal. And rather than leave all the locations all in the same go, I would have left one and seen if the Afghan National Army could have held their own in that one regional command. And if they could, then you do a phased withdrawal from another regional command. And then obviously the last one you would leave is RC Central, which was the Kabul capital. But, I think to do a complete withdrawal all in one go was probably the bad move.
Yeah, and I can just imagine how much China and Russia were laughing at us. I mean, what seeing that horrible withdrawal. I mean, come on.
Yeah, what it demonstrated is that we're
vulnerable in poor leadership and
Well, there's
time
that,
to attack.
but it shows that we abandon our allies,
Yeah.
when they need it most.
So it made our allies look weak too, and so then Ukraine.
It was a credibility.
Ukraine
It was a
happened.
credibility issue. Now, when the bodies were coming off the planes, as a veteran, I thought it was beyond disrespectful when those flag draped coffins were coming off the planes and Joe Biden is looking at his watch. Now, was he saying this is really boring? How long do you think this is going to take? Is he saying, hey, I've got a tea time to get to? Is he saying I'm meeting the president of Russia or Germany? Who knows? But what it looks like
Is he's bored.
is that he's bored, and how long is this going to take?
So again, foreign leaders are probably looking at it like, this guy doesn't know how to plan, doesn't stand by his allies, and doesn't give a crap about people who died under his command.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Not saying that that's exactly what happened, but that's what it looks like, and sometimes perception is reality.
Yep. And to make matters worse, he loosened sanctions on Iran, which, as he should have known, funds Hamas, Hezbollah. He declassified the Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization. Like, why on earth would you do that? Oh, no, they're all nice all of a sudden. And this, like, you're giving money to people who you know are going to attack you.
Yeah,
You should know that.
I mean, when we talk about the hostage negotiation or the prisoner negotiation or captivity negotiation, whatever you want to call it, and when we gave money to Iran in order to get U.S. citizens back, but there was this giant promise that Iran said, well, it won't be used to fund terrorism. We'll make sure that Qatar will make sure. It's just kind of funny.
It's kind of like giving matches to an arsonist and making them say, "I pinky swear I'm not going to burn down the barn."
Burn anything down. and we've talked about this ad nauseum when we said, look, there is an easy way to do accounting tricks. If you have a budget and your budget to your education is $6 million or $600 million, whatever it is, and you don't give them the budget, but you take that $600 million and you use the education money for terrorism, but then you take the $6 billion that you get for hostage release and you use that for education, all you've done is change the dollars.
Well, yeah, it's like getting a free pizza coupon, like, hey, I don't have to pay for dinner tonight. Now I can pay for a bottle of wine or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
all it was an accounting change in order to use the money for terrorism. And very shortly, soon after, we had the Hamas attacks, who were funded by Iran.
we knew they were funded by Iran
against Israel.
Yeah,
Is that a coincidence?
it's just astounding.
I mean, absolutely just astounding. So now Chinese spy balloons. So here we have Biden is always continuously talking about that he wants to be a competitor on equal footing with China, and China does not have reciprocity on that. China does not want to be a competitor of the United States. China wants to dominate its sphere of influence, the Asia-Pacific area, and the world. They do not want the United States of America to be the leader of the world post-2050. They really don't. And so
also, we keep giving them everything they could possibly
and
want.
they're
like,
stealing.
Oh, fly all over our country and then wait until they've crossed to shoot it down. Why?
Yeah, I
Why?
mean, we just have to realize that China is.
What good are they doing for us by flying over us? Nothing.
No, they're spying is what they're doing. It wasn't an errant weather balloon. They're spying, and as I've said before, I think this is
get some good old-fashioned lawn darts.
A practice, for contingency operations. If they shoot down our spy satellites and we shoot down their spy satellites, they're going to have a backup plan to be able to do spying and intelligence collection over us. So this is all practice. It seems benign, but it's not.
I wonder what would happen if we tried to do that to them. I think World War III would happen.
Yeah, I mean they'd shoot it down in a heartbeat. It wouldn't even be a.
It wouldn't make it within 10 miles of their coastline.
Absolutely not. So Biden keeps trying to think that China is a competitor, and they're not. They are an enemy. It's a new Cold War, and the Biden administration hasn't realized that it's happened yet.
Yeah, and they just keep giving the keys to the kingdom away with their energy and manufacturing, and now the spy intelligence. I mean, what else could they possibly want?
Right. Now, Ukraine. Obviously, Biden, I'm pro what Biden is doing as far as supporting Ukraine. I think that we need to support Ukraine because if we don't, and I know there's a lot of detractors out there, but if we don't support Ukraine, Russia has said Poland is next. Latvia is next. Estonia is next. And so by supporting Ukraine and giving them the things that they need to do, we're preventing a greater conflict in which the United States would have to partake in because all those countries are NATO allies.
If Putin says he's going to do something, we need to believe him. I remember when Trump said something to the effect, oh, Putin's smart. You can admit someone who's smart and still think they're evil. But everyone's like, oh, Trump's praising Putin. Where are those voices when Putin says he's going to invade Poland? Like, right. They're silent. Now, and we've discussed our strategy would be very different regarding Ukraine. Like, from the get-go, I mean, I think they attacked because they saw that Joe Biden was weak with the Afghanistan withdrawal. Then Ukraine was attacked. So, me, when we move into a new house, I go nuclear, full nuclear on bugs. Before we move in, I bug bomb the place. I spray the yard. I am scorched earth. That is the initial approach we should have given day one with all the artillery, send people over there to train, them how to use the equipment, immediately. That way, it just would send a huge signal to Putin, like, holy crap, what did I do?
Right.
Instead of this drawn-out little trickle effect. I mean, that's not scary.
The biggest
Give some time
mistake
to regroup and stuff.
The biggest mistake the Biden administration did in Ukraine was trickle in equipment.
And the only way to fix it now, and I don't think we have the means to do it anymore, because we've been trickling, spending, bullet here, bullet here, essentially, that we don't have enough supply to bombard.
Right.
All at once.
I mean, ultimately, what Ukraine needed was complete MTO complete brigade combat teams with all of the enablers, all the combat vehicles, all the support staff to do that, all of the Patriot, all of the ATACMS Block 2 Alphas. We should have given everything that they needed all in one go, along with the training.
This is literally everything right now.
But trickling it in, they use it, and then
one-time package.
then Russia, they come up with a countermeasure for it, and then we trickle something in, and then they come up with a countermeasure.
Well, plus we wouldn't be arguing about it 2 years now,
right,
from Congress, like trying to attach it to this bill or that bill. The conversation would be done.
Yep. All right. Now, what about the Paris Climate Accord?
So Trump got out of it when under his presidency, and that saved millions of jobs. Well, of course, Biden rejoined it, so costing millions of jobs.
I mean, the problem with this was that countries such as China and India were not held to the same standard as all the other countries. Now, China's argument is we need to continue to build coal-fired plants. We need to continue to ramp up our
global warming,
our CO2, because we haven't caught up to the developed nations yet. So we need to continue to raise our pollution rates. Everybody else needs to cut down, but we get to go further. And
so we shoot ourselves in the foot to help them.
Yeah. So we're growing their economy, we're hurting ours, and there's no change to the pollution. It'd be one thing.
He's supposed to be the American president, not the Indian president, not the Chinese president, our president.
Exactly. And the problem that we have here is that the rates aren't going to go down if countries go down voluntarily, but countries go up voluntarily. That's called a a zero-sum game. There's
also
there's
American energy. It pollutes, but we're more efficient in our CO2 emission levels. China doesn't care.
Right.
It's just whatever's cheapest, fastest. They don't care how much it pollutes. So it's better to do it here, and we get to keep the jobs.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go on the immigration record.
Well, first 100 days. You know, everyone likes to tell, I did this on the first 100 days. Well, Biden halted deportations, stopped the remain in Mexico, which I'm sorry, but if you are in true need of being safe, you know, where you're coming from, whatever danger you're fleeing, Mexico should still be a better solution than staying in, you know, Uganda or somewhere like that. So I don't see what was wrong with that policy. He ended, asylum case review. I'm like, come on, we need to know who these people are. If someone's coming into your house, you want to know who they are. He cut border security funding. He ended Title 42, which I think was a COVID protocol.
Right.
I mean, come on, like you wanted Americans to get vaccinated, but all the illegal immigrants from these countries, we don't know if they have COVID or not. Come on in. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
That was a big thing. Is why are we requiring Americans to get vaccinated to do certain things, whether to be in the military, to be a police officer, to be a government official, when migrants coming in don't have to be vaccinated?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what, you want us to save our grandma, but their grandma, who cares?
Well, or they're bringing in diseases of themselves and upping.
Yeah, because not every country vaccinates against all the diseases like we do.
Right.
Let's see. He also limited ICE's enforcement activities.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this isn't just to kick people out. It also affects kids.
Right.
Like in 2022, Homeland Security couldn't get in touch with 20,000 sponsors of unaccompanied minors. Under Trump, it was just 2,000. So 10 times more sponsors. Again, you want to know who's taking care of kids. If you're taking care of kids, people should be able to get in contact with you.
Right.
Under Biden, 10 times more couldn't get in touch with them. So you don't know what they're doing with these kids. Nothing.
And you know, the cartels have really just turned on the afterburners as far as human trafficking.
Oh yes.
Since 2021, cartels have made $13 billion in human trafficking alone. In 2018, it was $500 million.
With an M.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy.
So that's 26 times more money just in human trafficking alone. In the span of 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's according to Homeland Security.gov.
And to be clear, to be absolutely clear, the Biden administration, including the press secretary, there is nothing going wrong with the border.
Nothing unusual. It's normal.
There is
I'm sorry,
no open border.
26 times more money in human trafficking. That's not including fentanyl and nothing else. And then, you know, we also have people on the terror watch list. Barrett, remind everyone how many terrorists it took to do 9/11.
It was, what?
19? 19 terrorists, just 19. That's not that many people. 151 people on the terrorist watch list were stopped. Just the people we know about at the border in 2023. And only 3 in 2020. And a big fat 0 in 2019, where the Border Patrol had more money, had more resources to catch people.
Yeah, and I mean, when we talk about this, it is not. We're not talking about Hispanic people from Guatemala that are on these watch lists. We're talking about bad guys that are coming from countries,
and they've already done bad things. That's why they're on the watch list.
Right. So we're not talking about a mom and her 2 kids that want a better life. We're talking about people that want to do America harm, and they see the border as an easy way to get in there.
Yep. Well, another issue close to my heart, and this is another issue that should affect everyone, because if our kids are educated, they're going to come work for you one day, or they're going to come take care of you in the, in the nursing home. So everyone should care about it. And really, the main thing that he touts about education is just forgiving student loan debt. When our test scores are so bad, we're testing so much worse than the rest of the world, I think there's more to address in education than just the student loan debt.
Right.
So he tried to, erase $10,000 worth of student loan debt.
And $20,000 if you were on a Pell Grant.
Oh, yes, exactly. And now, fortunately, it was shot down by the Supreme Court.
Well, I mean,
tried to restart it again.
Here's straight up. President Biden is trying to buy votes.
Yes, I mean that's all it's about. And we live in an era where we don't teach people consequences anymore. Come on, you take out a loan for a house, you have to repay it back. You chose to go to an expensive school, you have to pay it back. I mean, it's as simple as that.
And got a degree in women's studies. I mean, it's one thing if you're an engineer, aerospace engineer, or electrical engineer, you've got debt and you go find a job. But I think a lot of the problem is a student will take out a loan for a bachelor degree, and then they immediately go and take out a loan for a master's degree, and then immediately go and take out a loan for a PhD, and they haven't gotten a job. They've deferred all this debt, and now they have a PhD, a master's, and a bachelor's that they have to pay back, and they don't have a job.
Yeah,
and they're complaining about debt, and it's
also they wasted a lot of time too.
Yeah.
I mean, at least students should look at it that way. Like, what's worth my time?
But it's been struck down by the Supreme Court correctly that you just can't arbitrarily just eliminate student debt. But that was a big campaign promise that Biden promised and could not deliver, and he did it because he was buying votes. Yeah. That's straight up what he was saying. I mean,
well, one thing that seems a little more agreeable to me is he was pushing for free 2-year school, which are more trade schools. And I mean, come on. I mean, there are plumbers making what, $60 an hour?
Yeah,
I mean,
crazy.
I'd go.
Well worth it.
If I were, I don't know. If I were a man, I would probably go for that. But that was shot down as well. And then one of his policies when he was running last time is he's not for school choice. But then again, he was talking about freedom.
Right.
I mean, there should be freedom of school choice for kids. I agree. I think. So under him, U.S. Department of Education issued a notice for Title IX to change to adopt students' pronouns.
This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And here's the why. Here's the why. So you talk about gender issues and the LGBTQ plus community. They talk about in their language that gender is fluid. Okay, so
whatever happened to personality?
Yeah,
or mood?
Exactly. So, with the pronouns being fluid and mandating that you adhere to these pronouns, people are changing them all the time. How is the normal person supposed to keep up if there's legislation that says you're supposed to use somebody's pronouns when the gender is fluid and things like that?
Well, also, I have a hard enough time remembering people's names. Like,
right.
I get frustrated enough with the hyphenated names. Like, dude, I barely care about your first name, and now you want me to add a hyphenated name and a pronoun on top of that? Like, dude, I don't care. I don't like you that much.
Yeah, and there's just been so many gaffes as well. So he had the gay pride celebration on the White House lawn, and then
people are showing their scars. I mean, that's not
their
very
transition
dignified.
Scars. Yeah, and I mean,
he wants to talk about the chaos of January 6th. I mean, sorry, a bunch of people showing scars on the White House lawn is pretty chaotic.
Yeah, and disrespectful.
Yes.
Disrespectful. But that was a self-inflicted wound by inviting that particular community that is very flamboyant. What did they think was going to happen? That somebody wasn't going to post on TikTok. Yeah. But as far as electability goes, he is way down in the polls. He is way down in the polls. And in fact, he's has the lowest approval ratings at this point, even more so than Trump. And half the country hates Trump, and more people hate Biden than Trump at this point in time.
I think people are seeing the issues that affect everyone, like the economics. And they're just like, I can't keep paying this month. I can't this much for everything. I can't afford to pay $11,000 more a year for the same thing, and it's probably just going to get worse. One thing that his campaign staff is doing right now is they've set up staff to police misinformation online, and they're assigned to talk about how scary Trump is. I think that's that and the basement strategy.
Right.
So like last time, because how much campaigning has he done?
Well, what's really
besides a good video, very little.
Right. So especially since his interview with Charlemagne the God during his initial run, where he said, if you're trying to figure out whether or not to vote for me or the other guy, you ain't black. Now, Charlemagne the God has said that he is not supporting the Biden administration, and he regrets supporting the Biden administration for 2020, but he is definitely not supporting the Biden-Harris administration this time around. And interestingly enough, young black and young Hispanic voters are disillusioned with Biden, and the polling is saying they're not going to vote for him. Now, the polling is not going, they're not going to go vote for Trump. They're voting for this guy, RFK Jr. And it's amazing that people don't talk about RFK Jr. We have a video here that you can look at, and we're going to do a follow-up. But in some areas, he is polling at 20%, and it is not being reported by the mainstream media. And so we are definitely going to do another video. But young black and Hispanic people are not looking to support Biden this time, and they're also not looking to support Trump. They're looking to vote for RFK Jr. And does that really help? But it helps Trump because it hurts Biden. It takes votes away.
Well, there are arguments. Some people say it can hurt Trump as well. But I don't want people to get too comfortable with polling.
Right.
Because, Trump was doing very well 2020, and then Biden got elected. So you just don't know. But I do encourage people to do their research.
Absolutely.
And, you just mentioned Biden telling Charlemagne the God, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That's not the only racist thing he said. He has he's had a 50-year political career, so it's easy to Google up some racist things that he has said. And the lies, multiple lies. I mean, from the gross exaggeration with the kitchen fire that he told the Hawaii residents, the lie he told about getting arrested trying to see Mandela. He was nowhere near there. I mean,
the travel on Amtrak he did.
Oh yeah, and that he drove an 18-wheeler when he really drove a school bus. He's trying to relate to the truck drivers. That he was at the World Trade Center right after the planes landed into it. No, he was in D.C. at that period of time.
Right.
I mean, just on and on and on. It's like, come on, man.
Well, I mean, the very famous this Bidenomics, and he has that video where he's talking about Bidenomics, and he whispers, "It's working," and no.
If it were working, you wouldn't even have to say it.
You wouldn't have to say it. People would be just like championing Bidenomics all the time. And the common thing that the administration says is, well, you just don't understand.
Really? You're going to gaslight us? Okay, so...
You don't get it. You're not smart enough to get it.
So he's telling Charlemagne the God he's not smart enough to think for himself. He's black. He's got to vote a certain way. And now telling everyone else... you don't understand basic economics.
Right. I mean, and really what he's trying to do is he's also saying, I have to protect the country from democracy. If If Trump wins, democracy
from
dies.
democracy or for democracy? Used the word from.
Yeah, I mean, we clearly, his administration is has conveniently timed prosecutions that are going on from the Department of Justice against President Trump. Now, whether or not he's guilty of these, the timing
They've
is
had 3 years. Some of the stuff, I mean, yes, I agree. Trump is guilty of some of it. I'm like, it's frivolous, but yeah, it's hard to dispute timing.
Yeah, the timing is just horrible, and really all it's doing is feeding this conspiracy theory that the Biden administration is trying to remove Trump, not because they think they can beat him in a head up mashup, but because if we can eliminate him via litigation, then we don't have to worry about facing him in the general election.
Well, whoever you vote for, we encourage you to, do your research and, don't vote for someone just because they're not Trump.
Right.
Vote for them because you think they're the best person. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in. Welcome to Azimuth Podcast. Today we are finishing our presidential candidate series with Trump. I'm Kimberly McNabb, and with me is my husband, Barrett McNabb.
Thanks, Kimberly. So let's go ahead and watch Trump's official campaign video on his website. There isn't one. So, like Chris Christie, Trump, let me give your campaign manager some advice. Go ahead. You're the leading candidate right now in the United States for the 2024 election. You also have the most money. My recommendation for your media manager is to create a 2-minute exciting video that is played immediately upon when somebody goes to your website. Yes, you have a bunch of POTUS 47 videos that are, in 2 to 6 minutes long.
They address his
policies.
agenda and all of his policies. So that much I do like.
But there's not a feel-good video that occurs right when you come onto your website, and I highly encourage you do that. Similar to, we kind of make fun of Chris Christie about that as well, but you're doing so well. Just get one of those videos out, and I think you'll be doing even better. But Kimberly, this is the last one. We saved the elephant in the room,
or not in the room,
or not in the
during
room
these debates.
For our last official 2024 candidate. And I mean, what a candidate is, or he is, and let's talk about him.
Yep. Now, we're familiar with how his presidency was, but we'll go over some highlights to remind you of what it was like aside from the Twitter wars.
Right.
So something that affected us all, economics.
Right.
We all have to buy groceries. We all have to buy gas. We all either pay rent or mortgage. So let's talk about it. Food was undeniably cheaper. Biden likes to talk about how his inflation's going down. Well, okay, last year I gained 20 pounds, but this year I gained 5 pounds. I'm doing well, right? No, you're still gaining weight. Well, stuff's costing more. So, for instance, 2017, food inflation, the one that affects us all, 0.9%. 2018, 1.4%. Under Biden, 2021, food inflation, 3.9%. 2022, 9.9%.
That's crazy.
And that's 9.9% more than 2021. So,
and this is just food. They pulled this statistic out of the norm of the regular inflation.
Yeah. So, you always have to do your research. I mean, yes, it can get boring doing research, but you need to know what the talking points really mean. Whether they feel good or not, you got to know what they mean. And, okay, say if you're a wealthy person, well, what do you care about, of food going up, quote, a little bit? Well, the morale of half the country, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, would be, they were better under Trump because the economy was better. I mean, it's just facts. I mean,
right.
At least half the country would be, their morale would be better under Trump. Whereas Biden, I'm sorry, but if things costing more, even if you voted for him, your morale is still going to suck. According to Pew Research survey, 44% believe that Trump made the economy better, whereas 26% were indifferent.
Yeah. This just goes exactly to Ronald Reagan's famous quote when he was debating Jimmy Carter. You need to ask yourself, are you better off now than when you were 4 years ago?
Yeah. So that's only 30% would say they were worse off under Trump, whereas 70% said they were at least indifferent or not better. Also, 2016 to 2019, I like to back out COVID because it was just unprecedented. The world was basically on fire. Unemployment was down to less than 4%. I mean, that's pretty good.
With some of the lowest levels for Black and Hispanic Americans.
Yeah, exactly.
In history, in Latin history.
Exactly. Something else that Trump did was he expanded apprenticeship programs. So, Biden's like, I want to forgive student loan debt. Well, that affects people that went to colleges, whether it's a state school or an Ivy League school. Apprenticeship programs, I mean, that's like, plumbing, electrical. The trades. And so that's encouraging working class people to thrive.
Yeah, and Mike Rowe, who famously has the television show Dirty Jobs, and he's a big proponent of the trades, in that you don't need to go to college in order to be part of the upper middle class. You can go to the trades and you can provide for your family and pay for education for your children, all without having to go to college and incur all of this debt. So he withdrew from the Paris Climate Accords, saving millions of jobs. And here's the big important reason why. It wasn't good for America. It wasn't good for America. It was good for certain countries, because while the United States had to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, countries like China and India were allowed to increase their production of coal-fired plants and increase the production of greenhouse gases. Now, that doesn't seem fair. Our economy gets hurt. Their economy grows. And the reason that China said that they needed to do this is they needed to catch up with the developing world in order to have their country. Well, if the world needs change, allowing two countries to replace the greenhouse gases of other countries rather than all countries reduce, that's something somebody could get behind. But the fact that it hurt the United States but helped China, an enemy of the United States, makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me.
No, and last I checked, it was global warming. So why would we shoot ourselves in the foot to help them out? And also, the way we are more efficient when we produce energy than China. I mean, They don't care how much CO2 is released in the air. They just want to bang out the energy, whereas we actually have regulations and standards. So we are actually cleaner in producing the same amount of energy.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's something people, just because you don't see the energy being produced here doesn't mean it's not being produced dirtier somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, imagine if somebody wanted to start up a coal-fired plant in California.
Good luck with that.
I mean, immediately there'd be all of these lawsuits and protests, and you can't do it. Imagine how many lawsuits are filed and how many mass protests there are in China when China wants to put a coal-fired plant down.
Nope, and
Zero.
They don't care how it gets done either.
Zero. So they can just plop these things down like it's a monopoly board, putting hotels and houses down, and there's no checks and balances. And the world community gave China a blank check with no checks and balances on what they could do. So I'm glad that he pulled us out, because it was not good for the United States of America, and that's what Trump has said that he was going to do. He was going to look out for us first.
Yep, because he's our president, not
Right.
China's president. So under Trump, we had the fastest annual wage growth of 5% for amongst the lowest paid. So, we scream inequality, inequality. We want income equality. Well, guess what? Increasing wages for the poorest people, I'd say, helps that.
Yes. The ideally, you want the poorest people's salaries to go up, their wealth to go up, the middle class, their salaries and wealth to go up, and the rich, their salaries and wealth to go up. You want everybody to go up.
Yep. And people forget wealthy people hire people in
And
their
start
companies
businesses.
and start businesses. Exactly. And under Trump, inflation was never above 2.9% with an
Okay.
average of 1.875%. And, we shoot for 2. I mean, right now, what is it? Way higher.
9.9?
For-
That's
for-
for
that was
food. That was for food.
Yes. So, and why does this matter? Well, for one, it affects everyone, but economy is important because historically, the state of the economy has some predictive value in how elections turn out.
Absolutely. I would say it's 100% on that, because if you can't afford things, if you can't afford staples, if you can't afford your rent, if you can't afford your electricity, it's human nature. You're looking for somebody to blame. Who is causing this problem for me? My gas. If my gasoline, I can't get to my job where I make money to buy all the things that I need to do.
Well,
Who's to blame for that?
Well, also, if you are worried about really important issues like how you're going to pay your rent, how you're going to put gas in your car, you don't have brain space and time and energy to worry about what pronoun someone's going by.
Right. That's not important to you at that point in time. It really isn't. Now, as far as his foreign policy, man, foreign leaders respected him.
Yep.
I mean, he acted like a boss. Whenever he was going to NATO, if somebody was in the front row, he'd just move them out of the way and get up to the front row. And that's where the United States needs to be. The United States is the leader of the free world. And I would say we're the leaders of the communist world as well, where there is no freedom because a lot of their actions are in reaction to what we do as the leader of the free world. And, everybody respected him. There weren't any invasions. Russia didn't invade Ukraine until after the disastrous Afghan withdrawal. And Biden said, well, I was just following Trump's policy. So if you see something that you think is wrong, but you're just going to say, well, he had it in place, so I'll just follow along, that's a cop-out. That's a cop-out on Biden.
Yeah, I doubt that was the blueprint Trump had laid out. And besides, since when has Biden gone by any of Trump's blueprint? Really, that was the one?
Exactly. He canceled just about every single executive action that Trump had, but he kept one, and then he got to blame it. But Russia waited until Biden was in office in order to invade Ukraine, and I don't know. I mean, Trump says that Ukraine conflict would not have happened if he had been president. It's hard to guess one way or the other, but
I would bet money that would be true.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah. Another significant thing that Donald Trump did was he moved the Israel embassy to Jerusalem. Now, Barrett, we've been at embassies. We
Sure.
were in Israel. So how is that significant?
Well, the true significance of it is Trump followed the law. Okay, that's the big thing. It was a law on the books that had been passed that numerous presidents had ignored, and it was to replace the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem with the U.S. embassy that was in Tel Aviv and move it to Jerusalem. And that was a law that was on the books that President Bush ignored, that President Obama ignored, and Trump executed what was on the books. So when you talk about law and order, he didn't invent it. He just executed the law as it was written. and it did a number of things. It reinforced our commitment to Israel because Israel claims the capital of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and so it reinforced our commitment to our strongest ally in the Middle East, and again, it followed the law. And
well, it showed the world that when we make a promise, we keep it.
We keep it, and the past presidents prior to President Trump didn't do that. Now I noticed that Biden has not gotten a chance to move the embassy back. I think there'd be huge pushback if he tried to do that. So it's now permanent. The law has been satisfied. But one of Trump's major accomplishments was the Abraham Accords. Let's be honest. Even prior to the events that occurred in October of 2023 and the attack in Israel and Israel's response into the Gaza Strip, Israel's in a bad area of town. They're in a pretty rough neighborhood.
This big, and all these gigantic countries that hate you surround it.
And they've been invaded 3 times, massive wars, but they're surrounded by people that hate them. And one of the things that Trump did is he helped normalize relations, with a lot of the big heavy hitters in the Middle East with these Abraham Accords, and namely the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and this is huge. This is absolutely huge to get these normalized relations, because when countries typically have normalized relations, they're less likely to go to war with each other. It used to be the old adage that countries that had a McDonald's never went to war with each other. And it held for a really long time. But unfortunately, that eventually
McDonald's isn't good enough ambassador
it's
anymore.
Not a good enough ambassador anymore. But still, if you have normalized relations, that means you have diplomatic dialogue and things like that. But it's significant because there have been so many presidents that have tried to do this in the past and had failed, absolutely failed. And so it's just a huge, significant win that I don't think is touted enough. Now, let's talk about current situation, the fact that we're in January of 2024 and the war has been going on in the Gaza Strip. Those relationships under the Abraham Accords are being strained. They are being strained, and nobody knows, especially not us. Nobody knows where that breaking point is. There's been a lot of grumbling, but a lot of those have been strained. And is President Trump somebody that can repair that strain once and if he gets back into office? And that's to be seen. But still, it was a monumental achievement at the time, and obviously circumstances has put that to the test.
Well, Hamas was only able to attack Israel because of its funding from Iran.
Right.
And how did Iran get so much money? Because sanctions were lifted by Biden.
And
Trump put sanctions on Iran, and so it made it harder for them to have money. and Trump also left the Iran nuclear deal.
Yeah, I mean, right before President Trump's election, the Obama administration lifted sanctions, wrote a huge check, I believe it was $60 billion, freed up of money, and then Trump left the Iran nuclear deal, and Biden went right back to it, negotiated some prisoners, and gave him an additional $6 billion. I mean, this is just an absolute travesty to fund a nation that one of their stated objectives is to have death to Israel, death to America.
I mean, it's like
makes no sense.
It's like Putin says that attack Ukraine, Poland's next. We should believe them. When Iran says, okay, we're going to get Israel and we're going to get the United States after that, we should believe them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Absolutely.
like if the bully at school says, I'm going to punch you in the face, you're going to duck.
Probably. I mean, it's coming. It's just coming.
Oh, goodness. But, speaking of Putin saying he's going to attack Poland next, Trump was accused of being a fan of Putin, but people who say that need to remember that Trump put sanctions on the Nord 2 pipeline, which hurt Putin.
Yes.
So if you're a fan of someone, are you going to hurt them economically? Probably not.
Well, one of the big things we have to look at when we keep saying Trump's a fan of Putin, a lot of this was a misinformation campaign that the Clinton campaign, threw out there with this dossier, right? And intelligence communities and the FBI jumped all over it, talking about how this Russian misinformation was in play to help Trump, and this dossier proves it. And it was proven that it was a Clinton campaign plant. And the intelligence community just jumped all over it. And so the same thing when the intelligence community, 51 members, including Clapper and some of the former heads of the CIA, 51 people signed on to an open letter to say that the Hunter Biden laptop was a Russian, guaranteed. We're intelligence experts, and this is a Russian misinformation campaign, and they lied. Now let's be honest. They're spies, and spies lie. Okay,
That's
so
kind of their
they're in the
job
intelligence
title.
community. They're like professional trained liars, and they took the time to write this letter and throw themselves on a sword that says this is a classic Russian misinformation, and they lied. And it's Hunter Biden smoking crack and having sex with prostitutes. I mean that's what it is. And so this campaign of Trump is fawning over Putin and things like that. I mean, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of these swamp institutional members are straight up lying, and they're conducting their own misinformation campaign on the United States of America.
Well, I mean, I think it was...
And those are facts.
I think it's just a overreaction of Trump saying that Putin was smart. Well, he's an evil genius. How about that? Yeah,
well, I mean, Putin
smart
plays
and
chess.
Evil.
He plays chess. He's smart.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I mean...
But anyway, let's move on to more issues at home.
Right.
Another issue that affects everyone: immigration. He had Title 42. He had the Remain in Mexico policy. I mean, that just makes sense to me. If you're fleeing, whether it's wartime, you're being persecuted, you can't find a job in your home country, you're still better off in Mexico than anywhere else. So, I mean, I still think that's more humane than
what's going on now.
What's going on now? I mean,
Right.
there are people being assaulted at the border. There are people being raped at the border. And okay, if you care about, global warming and the climate and, all the green energy stuff, well, guess what? These people are coming across. They have nowhere to discard their human waste or their trash, and so they're leaving that everywhere. They're setting up, campfires and setting fires to forests. So, I mean, I think everyone should be concerned about it. And then a asylum ban if you travel through any country other than Mexico, it makes sense to me, again.
Right. Well, one of the big things is when you look at the illegal immigration numbers under Trump and the illegal immigration numbers under Biden, Biden projected that there was going to be a looser border, and it was kind of amazing when you see these, hey, don't come, stay where you are, but then you relax all of the provisions that kept these people out of the United States. It's one of those, you're saying one thing, but you're doing another, and the doing part is what people pay attention to. And I that's just a huge significant problem. We look at the amount of staggering numbers what the cartels were getting in human smuggling in 2018. I believe it was $500 million.
Yes,
And
and
then-
now it's 13 billion.
With a B.
26 times.
Yeah, I mean, that's just
So
an
they're
incredible number.
loving this. Who wouldn't love to have 26 times the amount of money?
I mean, with the administration saying that there is no open border, there is no problem at the border, you're lying. You're lying. And the Trump administration, in building the wall and building barriers, remain in Mexico. These are all things that need to happen. I mean, the biggest issue that people have is they're saying that any restriction in immigration is inhumane. All you have to do is go to a legal port of entry and do what you're supposed to do. It's the problem is the people that are sneaking across, and then when they get caught, then they have their rehearsed lines of, well, I'm seeking asylum in order to trigger all these protections under international law and things like that. But the thing is Trump made the country safer on the southern border.
Yep.
There's fewer people coming across. There's fewer instances of fentanyl coming across. It's just these are facts. These are just facts, and they're indifferent to anybody's opinion on the matter.
Yeah, and people don't want to admit it's a problem until someone gets shot, and it was an illegal immigrant.
Yeah.
That has
Or a
shouldn't have been
college
here.
student.
Shouldn't have been here to begin with.
Yeah, or a college student that is having a rough day and wants to stay up late at night to study and orders a pill online and it's laced with fentanyl. Dead, just dead because he wanted something to help him stay up at night and help him concentrate, like Ritalin or something like
you
that.
don't pay attention until it's your cousin or your brother.
Yeah, exactly. Now, when we look at that border, speaking of fentanyl and speaking of which a lot of the angel families are people that have died, but there are a terrorist watch list that's at the border.
Yep.
And the the number of people that are caught at the southern border on these watch lists, I believe it was 151 in fiscal year 2023. And these are not people that wrote a bad check in El Salvador. These are people that
they've already done bad things.
They've already
They're
done
already
bad things.
known by the FBI and our organizations. They've already done bad things, and people don't typically stop doing bad things
they're not
just
reformed.
one time.
No, they're not reformed.
Yeah.
They're trying to get across the border, and with 19 people being able to do 9/11, what if 151? And these are the people that are caught.
Yes.
These are the people that are caught. So we're getting bad actors that are coming across.
And just ask yourself, if you find one person, they're knocking on your front door, they're asking to talk to you, you might assume that they're not there for nefarious reasons. If you find someone climbing over your back fence,
Walking in your door.
you can assume they're up to no good.
They're up to no good.
And that's what people who are sneaking across the border versus trying to come in legally, that should, the same assumptions should be made.
Right. So what are his plans to combat some of this stuff, Kimberly?
Well, he wants to label cartels as unlawful enemy combatants. And then he also wants to have a naval blockade to stop smuggling boats. Sounds good to me, because what are they smuggling? Probably fentanyl.
Right.
He wants to return the floating barriers that popped up in the news a few months ago that Governor Greg Abbott had in Texas. And then he wants to have what was infamously known as the Muslim ban.
Right.
And can you describe what exactly that was?
It's not a Muslim ban because all of these countries that were on his banned list, they have Jewish citizens.
It was just touted by the left.
It was touted by the left as a Muslim ban, but they have Christians, they have atheists, they have Jews, they have Muslims, they have the various kinds of Shia and Sunni and Abadi Muslims. So to call it a Muslim ban, but it was bans on countries that more often than not had some people that did not like the United States and wanted to cause death and destruction to our country. And so I'm not saying that all of those people felt this way.
Yes, it was
but
just a greater likelihood.
a preponderance said that these people would, in fact, cause problems. And so he just wanted it, and it was a pause. When he was running for his initial campaign, he wanted just this pause just to be able to set up the ability to screen and vet people that are coming in. Now, of course, the left-wing media and the mainstream media jumped all over it. He's banning Muslims. Never once said that he was banning Muslims. He was just banning, would we want 100,000 people from Western Yemen to immediately get on airplanes and fly into the United States? Now, the significance of Western Yemen is especially the northwestern corner along Saudi Arabia, is where the Houthis come from. All right, which is a insurgency organization that is heavily backed by Iran. But would you want, hey, let's just take this population and fly them over the United States because it's cool.
And what have they been up to lately, the Houthis?
And they've basically closed down the Red Sea with all their drone attacks.
So these same people he wanted to to stop from coming over have been attacking ships.
Yeah. So again, stop cherry picking, something out of it just to make it sound good. It wasn't a Muslim ban; it was a ban just from countries that historically have been bad actors to the United States, and he just wanted to pause it for a little while.
Yeah, and he also wants to outlaw welfare to illegal immigrants, which makes sense to me. They have no skin in the game. They haven't paid taxes, and we want people who are going to come here and contribute to our country. Why would we want someone who's just going to take?
Right.
When we can barely give Americans the things that they're already entitled to.
Right. And, one of the other things that he wants to do is he wants clarification on the 14th Amendment, specifically the clause for birthright citizenship. And that has been a topic that all of the candidates have adopted. Clearly, the 14th Amendment, when they're talking about birthright citizenship, it was specifically to counteract the Dred Scott's case, where people were saying that black people, former slaves, did not have the automatic right to citizenship in the United States. It was specifically written to address that. It was not written to have somebody who crosses the border illegally, who has no ability to be a natural citizen and subject to the laws thereof, to give birth and have that person automatically be a citizen of the United States. The amendment was not written for that, and he has pledged to end birthright citizenship.
Well, that will be very difficult to do with it being an amendment, but one thing people have to keep in mind when they think, that's really cruel. Well, if you go to other countries and you have a baby, that does not automatically give someone in any given country the right to be a citizen.
That's absolutely right. In fact, very, very few countries in the world have birthright citizenship. Typically, one or both parents have to be citizens of that country for the citizenship to be passed on to the child. So this is unusual, and one of the things that all the campaigns have recently been saying that are espousing to have an executive order do that. They want to get it to the Supreme Court. They want the Supreme Court to make the interpretation of what the 14th Amendment's purpose was. And so, yes, all of the candidates, DeSantis, Haley, Ramaswamy, Trump, they all agree that as soon as they sign an executive order like that, it would immediately enter the court system, and that's where they want it adjudicated.
Mm-hmm. Well, as far as education goes, Trump wants to expand. He did expand education and training for incarcerated. That sounds good to me, because if someone goes to jail, oftentimes they don't have training, or they are ineligible to work in the field that they were previously qualified for. And the last thing you want is someone put out on the streets and they can't get a job anywhere, because I'm sorry, but even if someone's willing to let them live there, people who are bored and have bad tendencies usually are not going to do good things.
Yeah. So this really directly pertains to recidivism rates and whether or not a person is going to have the likelihood of going back into jail. And by having an education and like we've talked before, getting trained in the trades and things like that, and having the ability to work on the outside of prison will reduce that recidivism and allow people to stay out of jail, because you don't want this cyclical jail. They get on probation, they get off probation, commit a crime, jail. You want them to get out of that loop.
Well, also, I think it looks good to employers. If you see someone who just went to jail and they're applying for a job, there's going to be some hesitancy. But if you saw that they went to jail and they had the fortitude, the discipline to go and complete training, do something productive after being incarcerated, makes him look a little bit better.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree. And he signed, a lot of people tout Trump as a racist. And that is just an easy label to throw on somebody when you're losing an argument. That's literally the Staples or Office Depot easy button.
Yeah, labels do not constitute an argument.
Yeah, exactly. But he signed $255 million annual funding for historically black colleges and universities.
Doesn't sound like a racist.
Doesn't sound like a racist.
If you hate a group, which a racist is someone who hates someone of a different race, you're not going to give them money.
Right.
You're not going to encourage their education.
And you see Trump all the time serving Thanksgiving and Christmas meals to people in the D.C. area, and you can see that all of those videos had him serving peoples of color to their meals. If you're a racist, you tell your media person, pass. I'm not gonna do that. But here he is serving, and presidents, historically they serve Thanksgiving meal to troops and things like that. But he also went to lower income neighborhoods, and he and the First Lady did that as well. If you truly are a racist, you're just gonna skip that part. So anyway, with all this funding to the HBCUs, that argument doesn't hold water. But he did cut funding to schools pushing CRT and gender ideology, as well as creation of a new teaching credentialing agency to teachers that are patriotic. Now, here's the difference. The critical race theory is purporting that that white people need to be apologizing for all of the past errors and sins of our forefathers and things like that. And to say, look, we're living in 2024. We don't need to be looking back to 1865. I don't see that as being racist.
Well, also, does anyone really want to look their kid in the eye and tell them that they should apologize for being born the color that they are?
Color.
I don't want our kids going to school and being screamed at saying, you were born the wrong color, you were born a bad color. Whether you're black, white, whatever, you should not apologize, especially since, guess what? You didn't have a choice
exactly
on being born a boy or a girl or black or white or Hispanic. You didn't have a choice. So
right.
I think we should all just be accepting of it.
Yep. So let's talk about his electability, right?
Yes.
So he is massively leading in the polls for the Republican nomination, by a lot.
Now, people, I don't want people to get overly comfortable, or, if you're rooting for a different candidate, or if you are a different candidate, to, take comfort or disheartening in polls, because, goodness, anything could happen between the ages of the candidates, between the legal issues with the candidates. Anything could happen. But, why are people so fired up about Trump? One of his lines is, I am your retribution, or they're coming after you, but I'm standing in the way. I would rather hear, I'm going to stand up for you.
Right.
I'm fighting for your rights, not I'm going to be a dictator on day one. Like, no, I'm going to be so forceful on day one, protecting your rights.
And
that's
that's
make it more about us.
That's a good point. But so he kind of said that in jest.
But people are going to run away with
they're
it.
going to run away with it. He said, "I'm only going to be a dictator on day one." Is what his joke was. Not I'm going to be a dictator on day one. But people ran with that. Hey, he said he's going to be a dictator, but he was joking. I'm only going to be a dictator on the first day, which that was just, obviously it hurt him because it's a sound bite that people get to run with. But I completely agree with you. He's saying they're coming after you, but I'm standing in the way. And I agree. He should be saying, here's what I'm doing for you, or I'm going to do for you, because it is a little bit of grabbing a little bit of Dark Brandon, going on with some of the things. But these indictments, and it's the same thing when he was running for his first term. It just seems that no matter what happens, he's the Teflon Don, and stuff just does not stick to him. I mean, during the first time he ran for the 2016 elections, that Hollywood Access or tape, Access Hollywood tape, and he's talking about all this locker room talk as he talked about it. Everyone was like, "That's it. He's done. He's done." And he went up, and so just all the stuff that would normally completely tank a normal mere mortal. It just seems to power him up and increase him. And so all of these indictments, 91 indictments on this man in various state and federal courts for all kinds of things, is just every time he gets indicted on a new charge, his funding goes up.
Yes.
It's absolutely crazy. And I think some of it is because of the timing. He says, "Hey, look, what they're trying to do is this is a political persecution, and they're trying to remove me from the ballot." And that's exactly what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. I'm not saying it is true or isn't true. I'm not a member of the Department of Justice, but perceptions matter, and the timing of it is just, with Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, wanting to hurry up these trials in order to hit him before the election. Well, when you say I'm trying to do this before the election, it looks as though you're trying
suspicious.
To do it before the election.
Yes, and I think people, being strong supporters of him, it's kind of like touting a cause of the fight against big government.
Right.
And Donald Trump is going to be the martyr if they win. So that's a big mountain to climb for these other candidates. And then, he also has separate events of his own
that occur at the same time
during the debates. And but on the other side, he's loud, he's doing well, and then when he's quiet, the very few weeks where he's quiet, he seems to do well too.
He is the master, and I don't know if it's him or if he also has. I mean, he has a team. All these people have teams, but he is a master at staying in the news cycle. Mm-hmm. And what the advertising, all press is good, even bad press, and he is getting good press and bad press all at the same time continuously. I don't think he has ever left the news cycle.
No,
I mean, he's getting all this stuff for free.
Yeah, and that's worth. I mean, press is worth. One small piece of press is worth millions of dollars, and he gets it for free.
Now, so what are some things that we see that he's doing wrong?
Yeah, things that are hurting him. I mean, I think Nikki Haley put it very well, saying he's his own worst enemy, and that's true. Like with the Florida documents case, all he had to do was be quiet, not wave stuff up in the air, and then saying, "I'll be a dictator on day one." Little sound bites like that. People are going to grab onto that. What he needs to do is focus on two things: how he's going to help us, and then focus on Biden's failings and say, "Miss me yet?"
Right. Well, so why him over somebody else?
Well, So someone else, we need a candidate that can win and not go to jail.
Okay.
And someone who will not be so distracted, because court cases take a long time. They're very soul-sucking, money-sucking, time-sucking. I want someone who can focus just on the job, because it is the most stressful job on earth. And, someone who can pardon him on the federal crimes. But, if it is him, at least half of the country will be happy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And a lot of the candidates have said that they would pardon him if he, is convicted. And not because they're fans of Donald Trump. They just want the country to move on. They don't want that half of the country to just completely, be mired in this negativity. They want to move on and move forward.
And I think that speaks for everybody.
Absolutely. So thank you for watching this segment of Azimuth Podcast. This is the last and final candidate profile that we have that are the major players for the 2024 election. And stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all of the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.